a United States citizen, was almost deported, was arrested by the federal government, held, incarcerated for many days, and finally released when an attorney believed him. He was never not a citizen. Yeah, he's a black male. All right, let's get to it. Let's put up his picture full mask. Let me tell you about the horrific story, the thing that happened to Brian Bukle. Never should have happened, but it did. 62 years of age, was detained and almost deported to the British Virgin Islands because immigration officers refused to believe that he was a US citizen, and they refused to even check. Mr. Bukle, born in the British Virgin Islands, was automatically naturalized through his parents in the 1960s. He was 9 years of age. But in June 2020, while he thought he would be going home from prison to reunite with his son in time for Father's Day, he was told that Immigration and Customs, the enforcement wanted him out of the country. So ICE said, you have to go. Here's a quote. I came this close to being deported and losing everything. A nightmare that has stayed with me to this day, Mr. Bukle said. Civil advocates believe Bukle was subjected to the treatment because of his race. The US government settled a wrongful arrest lawsuit with Mr. Bukle on December 5th for $150,000. Not enough money in my opinion, I will tell you why in a minute. Data shows that ICE disproportionately selects black immigrants for deportation. According to the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, black immigrants are more likely to be targeted for deportation and come in contact with ICE than immigrants of other races. While 7% of non-citizens in the US are black, they account for 20% of those facing deportation, triggered by the criminal justice system, the organization that advocates against anti-black racism in the immigration process said. Now there's more. Bukle was incarcerated in 2018 for 2 years for assault and possession of a firearm. He was convicted and spent his time, gave his time. He's now a free man, according to the docket. But that's not what happened. While in custody, he told California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation staff that he was a US citizen. Told them this on numerous occasions. And it was noted in their files that he told them, hey, I am in fact a US citizen. However, prison staff decided to ignore the proclamation of this human being and classified him as a potential ICE hold, which means the federal government needs to come and look at this. In addition, all of the applications identified Mr. Bukle's parents as the route to his siblings' citizenship. The documents also confirm that their naturalization started the same day Bukle's mother and father completed the American citizenship process. Still, the immigration officer who sent the request to the prison to detain Mr. Bukle for 48 hours would have been released to transfer to an ICE detention center, said he had probable cause to do so based on, get this, biometric confirmation of Mr. Bukle's identity and records check of federal databases. Now let me pause on this and then I will give you the rest of the story. What in the hell is that? Okay, well, a biometric determinant is basically something like voice recognition, facial description or facial recognition. Fingerprints can be included. Also, fingernails, DNA, things of that nature. So what is the federal agent talking about? That he has some kind of biometric information that somehow supersedes any other information that may be part of the system. Well, that remains a mystery today. We never got to the bottom of it, unfortunately. The lawsuit says Mr. Bukle maintained that he was a US citizen the entire time and repeatedly requested to the prison staff to remove the immigration hold, but they did not. Instead of being picked up by his family on June 16th, 2020, Mr. Bukle was picked up by ICE the next day. You're not a citizen, you're a foreigner, one prison guard reportedly told the man. Two security guards employed by G4 U.S. Secure Solutions, Inc. went to the prison and arrested Mr. Bukle before transporting him to the ICE sub-field office in Bakersville, California. However, the ACLU Foundation of North California, Advancing Justice Asian Law Caucus, and the law firm Sidley Austin LLP, which filed the lawsuit on the man's behalf, claimed the security guards had no authority to arrest Mr. Bukle, even though they were outsourced by ICE. The practice was also banned during the summer in another lawsuit settlement. ICE and CDCR didn't care about me or my life, he said. Mr. Bukle is just one of several potential US citizens arrested, detained, or deported by ICE over the past few years, and the vast majority of them, people of color. Mr. Bukle also told ICE officers at the field office that he was a US citizen through his parents' naturalization. However, the lawsuit says deportation officer R. Cruz checked the database and found only evidence of his father's US citizenship status, not his mother's. He told Bukle, "We're going to send you back." Bukle then asked the immigration officer to speak to his brothers to confirm his status, but Agent Cruz refused. The older man spent 36 days in an ICE detention center before a lawyer intervened on his behalf, and he was released. Here's what you will not hear. You will not hear Marjorie Taylor Greene outraged by the federal government treating this man this way. He's a US citizen. You will not hear Mitch McConnell outraged by the treatment of this US citizen. You will not hear Lindsey Graham, Donald Trump, or others on the right outraged by this miscarriage of justice because he's the wrong color. Understand this. If this would have happened to a white male or white female, they would have been all on top of this, making the federal government the villain and the individual incarcerated the hero. That's what they would have done. But when the context changes in reference to skin color, all of a sudden, there's this very different proclamation of facts. What happened to this man should have never happened. He is, in fact, exactly what we said he was. Now, think about the process of negligence here. Number one, he told prison staff exactly who he was. Number two, it was actually noted on his file. Number three, they ignored his own truth and decided to still contact ICE. ICE gets involved. They subcontract to a private company to go and have him arrested, detained. And it wasn't until multiple law firms got involved, multiple advocacy organizations stood up, and that's when Mr. Bukle was released. That is the reason I say $150,000 is not enough for what this man went through. All right, David, thoughts here?
I feel horrible for Mr. Bukle, and this goes to show that the racism is not just the security guards and the people involved. There is an institutional racism in the system as well that needs to be addressed, because what happens is it's so easy for somebody in this system in which you have immigration and custom enforcement decide. They get to decide who's going to be an American, who's not. They don't get to, and they can use arbitrary reasons for who they go after. And so when you have, it's like a snowball effect. When you have a couple of people, the security guards who are clearly racist, who for whatever reason don't like Mr. Bukle and don't like the idea that he somehow may be freed in America, this whole thing starts to snowball because we have institutional racism that combines with the individual racism. And until we realize that, and until we realize that we are giving so much power, so much ridiculous power to agencies like ICE and others, this is going to continue to happen. And I'm just glad that Mr. Bukle is still alive and that he didn't give up after a couple of years in prison, and then suddenly now he's behind bars and ICE, that he would have the fortitude to keep going and to realize, okay, I'm going to beat this. Good for him. That's a great role model for all of us.
Yeah, that's right. And all of the levels that decided to ignore what he said, I guarantee you, David, they're saying, I'm not racist. What I did was a mistake. But you have to think about it. Everybody made the same mistake with Mr. Bukle. Every agency, every department, every layer of protocol made the exact same mistake with Mr. Bukle. That's called, as you said, brother, institutional. And that is why it is worthy of examination through the context of critical race theory or other critical thinking dynamics as it relates to race in America.